What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this I'm going to be talking about the one and only NIO stock and what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to break down what the news, data, and technicals are telling us about the overall market right now, how this may affect NIO, and why it's very likely we may see something very unexpected and a small short squeeze tomorrow in the stock market. I know that sounds like crazy, but once you see the charts and the technicals, it's going to make a lot of sense. Once you see Apple's earnings and what could end up playing out during it, I will break down why that is. But before I break anything down about why that is and get into any details about my NIO price prediction for tomorrow, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed up to 5 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is, any could be a free Tesla share. And offerings in just 9 days. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. NIO is up 5.56% for the day, actually breaking above $8, so it was even stronger than I expected. But the real question is what's likely going to happen tomorrow to not just NIO, but the overall market as a whole. And for now, we're actually seeing some crazy things developing. Now, to start us off, just remember we have some non-farm payrolls and also some labor data coming out for the unemployment and the labor force participation rate, and then some car prices data coming out. And then we also have Apple's earnings in just a couple of hours. I can't record this during earnings or when it comes out, guys. I'm so sorry about that. But I want to talk about what I think is going to play out and release this video as soon as I can. We also have AMC earnings and Warner Bros. Coming out for tomorrow. But here's what's big about Apple. Now, Apple is a company that tends to not miss on earnings. I know expectations could be lower, so that could, uh, you know, increase the odds of them doing okay. But the problem is, if there's a decline quarter over quarter, that could still have a negative effect on Apple's price action. However, Apple's also expected to announce a $90 billion or $90 billion in buybacks and dividends when it reports its earnings. If Apple does that, that is going to be bullish news, and we could see Apple rocket and help the market continue to pump. Now, what else is worth noting is yesterday I told you guys that we would likely see downside in the markets, and the market dropped pretty hard today, hitting my target of 404 on SPY. And now that that happened, now that we got a big sell off, I want to show you the divergences that have developed and why they're suggesting that it's possible for us to get a bounce very soon. I also want to note that we have almost a million puts expiring with the 410 max pain and a 2.05 put to call ratio. So now that the market's dropping, if Apple does very well, if Apple could get a pump, the stock market is going to squeeze tomorrow. The shorts are going to get annihilated because of the market makers. That's very likely to happen if Apple does well. And for now, it looks like the odds favor that happening, in my opinion. I will break that down in just a couple of minutes. I just want to note that NIO did very well. They actually won some big awards in a Geneva event, and I'm very proud of them for their pilots for the highway selected technology and their safety features. So it's very, very awesome for them. Very proud of them for that. And now, just to add to that, NIO had a relatively low price price ratio. It's trying to bounce off of this. Barclays, excuse me, sorry guys. Barclays is giving NIO an equal weight rating, and then on top of that, NIO tends to be green about 53% of the time on Fridays, so it tends to be a good day. And finally, the short interest on NIO did go up a little bit. We did see about 8 million NIO shares shorted in total. And finally, 44 million was NIO's volume. So pretty decent from this point on. We didn't really form a divergence when we bounced, but NIO is actually hovering around the 200 EMA. Now for tomorrow, I think NIO will be impacted by the markets depending on what happens. It is kind of overbought right now, so I am anticipating that it might cool off just a little bit. Excuse me, sorry guys, a little bit in the morning, and then it might try to continue pushing later on. But I am seeing some very bullish signals, so don't forget about the fact that max pain is at a high level. There's a lot of puts expiring tomorrow, and when you look at the chart, something new developed, which is very interesting. So in my previous video, I told you we have like a head and shoulders on SPY. We're likely going to see it come down to around 404 or so. I wasn't sure if this would happen by like Thursday or Friday. I just wasn't as confident. But now that it happened super quickly, there's actually a divergence that's developing and things are starting to change a bit. Here's what's interesting. Looking at the chart right here, check this out. When SPY was dropping, we saw the price continue to make these lower lows, but the RSI made the higher lows. And then on top of that, we got a really nice bounce off a key level, very close to 404 support. What happened to SPY? Squeeze. It went all the way up to 417. Very, very interesting stuff. Then Jerome Powell during the FOMC meeting caused the market to tank because he did not give the bulls what they wanted to hear. And when there was more news about more bank failures and JP Morgan essentially acquiring them. But now when you look at the chart, we're about to get this crossover on the PPO on SPY. And then look at the RSIs. Let me just compare them just for 1 second. So look back right here. Right here. So notice how this RSI is making the higher lows while the price made the lower low, and then this thing squeezed. And what is the chart doing right now? Well, technically, the RSI has been making these higher lows for quite a while as this thing is forming like this big bottom. So this is the first divergence. Then you could also argue that there's a double divergence because right here, the RSI was around like 25 at the lowest. Then the RSI hit a low of like 25.8. So the RSI was actually, it was a little lower right here than how low it was like around this area, but overall it has been trending upwards because like right here there's an uptrend on the RSI where the price is making this big downtrend, and this typically signals a nice bounce. And on top of that, this is a bullish formation because we have like a double bottom like formation, so we could be forming a nice setup for us to push up from here. It seems very likely that that's going to happen with the crossover on the PPO. We might see SPY approach at least 407, if not 408, and if that breaks, 410 could come very soon. Why 410? Well, don't forget Max Payne tomorrow is at 410. It seems very likely. Obviously, it depends on Apple's earnings. If Apple kills it, if Apple squeezes, SPY is going to squeeze to 410 tomorrow or higher. If Apple does not do well, if Apple fails, then the market could just keep crashing and this divergence could be invalidated. Honestly, guys, I don't truly know what's going to happen, but I think the odds greatly favor upside because there's a bullish divergence on SPY. We actually formed a nice double bottom like formation. Apple, there's a lot of news about Apple with the buyback, which is going to be bullish if it does come out. I don't think that Apple will just not do anything like that if all the news headlines are saying that. And then for the QQQ, don't forget the same exact thing is forming on the QQQ. You can see right here, just right off the bat, the RSI was at 29, then the RSI hit 31, while the price made a lower low, and then the same thing happened here. Where is it? Right here. There's also this divergence right here. RSI was at 25, actually 25.5, and then it's been trending up since, and the price has been trending down on the QQQ. So this is signaling a potential bounce. My target on the QQQ was around 313 to 314. We actually hit around 315. So we came a little short of filling this gap. So I don't know if we're going to come down a little bit, maybe gap down, then pump or do something like that. But I do believe that there is a good chance we could see this thing try to bounce because it's very, it's kind of oversold. And we also have this bullish divergence forming. On top of that, don't forget about the VIX. The VIX is up over 10%. When the VIX is up over 10%, this tends to actually signal a very big move to come. And it tends to signal an opposite reaction later on. So if the VIX is up 10% today, the odds heavily favor the VIX cooling off tomorrow, statistically. And what else you'll notice about the VIX is we have a bearish divergence. Right here, I'm just going to double check this. The RSI has been making 3 drives down, right? The RSI was at 75 during this peak, and the peak right here was around, this was around like the 19 level. The RSI went higher here. That's when the RSI hit 60, was that 73? Then the RSI hit 70. So the RSI is making these lows, but the price is making these highs. And the biggest divergence is right here from the last couple of days. The VIX is just making this higher high, but the RSI is making this lower high. And the VIX is a little overextended. We also have these gaps right here. It hit overbought territory many times. It's up over 10%. Statistically, the odds favor downside for the VIX. The VIX filling this gap here. There's also another gap, I think a little bit lower. So this is telling me that the VIX might come down very soon. Why? Because the S&P 500 may pump. Why may the S&P 500 pump? Because of something helping it to push up, whether it's just a typical reaction or excuse me, sorry guys, or it could be Apple earnings. And the odds do favor Apple possibly causing a good reaction by tomorrow. Don't be fooled by just the numbers, okay? We have to wait for the call for Apple too. On Tesla, I'm not really seeing too much on Tesla. The RSI has been pretty flat. There's not really a whole lot going on Tesla. It's just continuing to trade sideways over and over and over again. And all they're doing is just destroying people that are holding options by pushing us up and down, up and down. It's destroying both people holding puts and calls. And not a whole lot is going on. However, if the market gets that squeeze that I'm talking about, it could actually help Tesla push up above 163 and make its way up to 165 or so. And if Tesla somehow gets a spontaneous break or some bullish catalyst like a piece of news, if it breaks 165.5 to 166, it's going to push for 170. Finally, for NIO, what do I see for NIO? Well, it needs to cool off a bit. It's quite overbought. So I think NIO is going to come down to retest $8 flat, if not 7.9. Then we might see NIO just try to continue pushing after that. If the market squeezes, we might see NIO push up even higher to 8.2. And if it breaks that, then I could see this thing get even closer to about this 8.4 zone. If that's the case, that would be bullish for NIO. Right now it's holding up nicely, but it needs to cool off a little first. That would be a lot more healthy before it continues pushing. And that's what I'm saying being the most likely possibility. If NIO gets rug pulled and the market just ends up failing because of Apple, then expect NIO to come down to where the 50 EMA is, around the 7.7 area, if not lower. That's the more bearish case, but always be prepared for anything. I just want to note that I think the odds heavily favor upside though, right, for the markets. I think it's more likely thanks to Apple. If you look at Apple as well, don't forget Apple's kind of selling off right before earnings. It's down 0.7%. And I'm not really seeing too much going on with Apple. Not really seeing a whole lot. It could still bounce, of course. If they do the buyback, that is going to lead to a very bullish move. Even if they miss on like EPS or something, they could still absolutely kill it during earnings and surprise a lot of people. That could be very awesome news. But if Apple, I mean, the buyback could actually trump bad news for them. That's why you have to wait for the call first. Do not fall for the initial reaction first. All right, guys. So be prepared for either a big sell off tomorrow or a big rally. It's got to be one of those two. The odds favor, in my opinion, has shifted based off this adjustment on the charts to more upside for tomorrow. I think the odds favor that. I think shorts will try to squeeze, I'm sorry, market makers may try to squeeze shorts, and I am seeing signs of that potentially happening. All right, so thank you for listening. Have a great day. Remain calm, cool, and collected. I also have some merch for you guys if you're interested in buying anything, whether it's a tank top or a hoodie or something like that. It's your choice. I appreciate all of you. NIO to the moon alongside the overall market because the long term is still very bright. And peace out.